Would you risk your own life to fix someone else's mistakes if it meant losing touch with your identity? The gallery was cloaked in muted light, shadows stretching long across the cold, polished concrete floor. A subtle haze of cigarette smoke lingered, mingling with the faint hum of whispered appreciation and clinking glasses. Lena moved through the crowd, her worn leather coat wrapped tightly around her petite frame, the weight of the moment pressing heavy against her chest. Her auburn hair tumbled loosely over her face, strands catching the soft lantern light as she approached the space where her photograph was meant to hang, a lonely wall space glaringly blank, framed only by stark white molding. Instead of her image, a blank frame stared back, cruel and empty, mocking her. A murmur rippled through the gathering, voices laced with curiosity and judgment. Lena's gaze flickered anxiously around the room, searching for answers, for recognition, but all she found were dismissive smirks and indifferent glances. From the shadows, a figure watched with thinly veiled contempt. Marco, the influential art critic known for his biting words and sharp eye, leaned against a pillar, his mouth curled in a subtle sneer. His presence was a stark counterpoint to the muted hope in Lena's restless eyes. "Seems the star never quite rose," a voice whispered near her ear, dripping with sardonic pity. Lena flinched, barely restraining a shudder. She stammered, voice barely audible. "There must be a mistake. That was my piece." The gallery owner, a thin, tightly wound woman named Celeste, approached, her expression iced with professional detachment. "There's no mistake. Marco decided it didn't fit the collection. We had to make a last-minute change." Her words were a blade, slicing through Lena's fragile hopes. She struggled to keep her composure as whispers grew, some tinged with mockery, others with gentle sympathy she felt unworthy to claim. Lena's hands clenched into fists inside the pockets of her oversized coat, fingernails biting into calloused skin as the room spun in a dizzy spiral of rejection. Her breath caught, the bustling noise dimmed to a distant echo. The city outside pulsed relentlessly beyond the tall windows, neon signs flashing cold blues and reds onto the rain-slick streets, a chaotic dance from which she felt irrevocably disconnected. She turned slowly, the vintage boots she'd worn like armor clicking softly against the floor, and withdrew into the protective gloom of a quieter hallway. The heat of stifled tears burned her cheeks, but she pressed them away, unwilling to show the fracture beneath the tough exterior. Discarded photos peeked out from a tattered satchel at her feet, prints of moments she'd fought to immortalize, now seeming like forgotten dreams amidst the stark white walls. A deep, hollow ache settled inside her, visceral loneliness, a familiar ghost that lingered behind every shutter click and every unshared story. Outside, the city's pulse beat on, uncaring and unyielding, as Lena's silhouette faded into the urban shadows. The camera held on the blank frame, a haunting symbol of invisibility and unfulfilled potential. The scene closed with the soft click of a camera lens snapping shut, a resonant echo of paused dreams, waiting in darkness for light to return. The city's breath was heavy under a steel-gray sky, rain dripping steadily, washing the grime from cobblestone alleys but leaving the weight in the air undisturbed. Lena's footsteps echoed hollow on wet pavement as she fled the gallery's cold clamor, the flurry of voices and eyes still burning on her skin. Her oversized coat, damp and slightly stiff from the drizzle, wrapped her in solitude amid the sprawling urban anonymity. She paused beneath the flicker of a malfunctioning street lamp, its intermittent glow casting fractured shadows on the slick road. Around her, the city unfolded a maze of forgotten facades, neon hues bleeding through fog, and the distant pulse of traffic, a living collage of faceless stories. Yet in this vastness, Lena felt painfully small, swallowed by her own invisibility. Her hands clenched the strap of her camera bag until the fabric creased, the weight of discarded photos pressing like forgotten dreams against her ribs. The camera lens her once trusted eye now seemed a traitor, unable to frame the truth she sought. Down a narrow alley, the cold bite of urban shadows crept closer, swallowing her breath in thick silence. Memories of the gallery night sliced sharply through her mind, the blank frame, the murmurs, the merciless absence where her work should have shone. Marco's inscrutable gaze, icy and dismissive, burned there to a silent verdict condemning her. "Maybe you're just not enough," a voice cracked in her head, relentless and cruel. Lena bit back a sob, the taste of defeat bittersweet. She knelt, fingers brushing a puddle reflecting fractured city lights, a distorted double of herself staring back, flickering, incomplete, lost. The reflection rippled as a stray breeze swept fallen leaves across the water's surface, fragments scattering with the current. Grim resolve hardened beneath the shrouded hurt. She rose, rain mingling with tears, eyes narrowing not in defeat but in the faintest gleam of defiance. The cityscape around her suddenly seemed less a cage and more a canvas, vast and anonymous, begging for new stories to be told. A dog barked in the distance, distant and solitary, mingling with the rhythmic pulse of her quickened heart, Beata heartbeat eager for reclamation. A flicker of urgency drew her gaze to a discarded photograph caught under a manhole grate, weather and fading but alive with secrets. She stooped, fingers trembling as she plucked it from the rain, the image blurred yet hauntingly compelling. The photo's edges curled like whispered promises. It was a mysterious puzzle piece, unexpected and enigmatic, that pulled her from stagnation's grip. The city breathed around her, alive with possibility, as she tucked the photo safely away. With hesitant but purposeful steps, Lena vanished into the labyrinth of streets, a ghost weaving through the urban shadows with a newly kindled spark, quiet, fragile, yet undeniable. The camera lingered on the empty street corner where she'd paused, the rain washing away her footprints but never the faint echo of change in the restless night air. The city's pulse had slowed into the cold of night, fog slipping through the narrow alleys like a drifting secret. Lena wandered aimlessly beneath the muted glow of street lamps, their light casting long shadows that lent the urban labyrinth an eerie silence. Her oversized coat had slid from her shoulders, swallowed momentarily by the dusky air, and her boots echoed on wet pavement, each step a solitary echo in the endless maze of stone and mist. Her thoughts swirled tumultuously, memories of the gallery, the blank frame, the hushed murmurs circling like vultures. The ache of invisibility weighed heavy on her chest, a relentless heaviness compounded by whispered doubts and self-recriminations. She tucked her chin to the collar of her coat, and as she turned a corner shielding herself from the biting wind, something caught her eye. Just beyond a crumbling brick wall, near an overflowing dumpster, lay a camera, forgotten and humming faintly with residual power. Curiosity stirred faint embers of purpose. She knelt, fingers cool and tentative as they brushed over the cracked leather casing. The camera was old yet meticulously maintained, a relic facing obsolescence in the digital cacophony. Lena's heart quickened as she found and slid out the memory card. Fingers trembling, she hooked the device up to her laptop in a dimly lit corner cafe, the flickering neon signs outside casting dancing blue shadows inside. The images flickered onto the screen, stolen moments, intimate and raw, glimpses into a life that was not hers but strangely haunting. Among the photos, one frame stopped her breath. The composition was startling, a blurred figure in urban shadows, half-hidden, yet unmistakably vibrant with unspoken stories. The angle, the light, the decisive click, it was a moment waiting to be captured anew. Her eyes traced the edges of the image, finding similarities in perspective, angles that mirrored her own sensibilities. A spark ignited, fragile yet insistent, perhaps a bridge between her past failures and an uncharted path forward. The bustling cafe noise receded as she stared, alone yet connected. The unknown photographer's vision resonated with her own buried dreams, a shared language of light and shadow etched across frames. The camera lens, the tool and symbol of her existence, now felt both a burden and a key. With trembling hands, Lena copied the images and powered down the device, her mind racing with possibilities and threads yet to be woven. Outside, the night exhaled mist that curled around the lampposts, softening the harsh edges of the city. Lena stepped out into the quiet street, the weight of doubt momentarily lightened by the mysterious photograph's pull. The urban shadows no longer seemed suffocating but alive, vibrant with stories waiting to be told. Her gaze lifted to the hazy cityscape, an anonymous sprawl of secrets, waiting for the unseen lens to reveal the hidden truths. Barely audible was the faint click of a camera shutter, a quiet promise whispered just beyond the fog. The scene faded on Lena's determined silhouette, stepping deeper into the city's endless maze, a solitary photographer on the cusp of discovering herself through another's forgotten gaze. City streets glittered under the relentless drum of rain, the neon reflections fractured in puddles like scattered memories. Lena's boots splashed through the shallow water, her breath visible in the cold air as she clutched the mysterious photograph, a haunting image lifted from a stranger's camera. The photo revealed a shadowed figure lurking in an urban alley, the light catching fractures of emotion in a broken world. Her grip tightened around her camera bag, worn fabric rough like the skin she'd come to know beneath rain and sleepless nights. The city was a labyrinth of hidden stories folded beneath steel and glass towers, secrets tucked away in every dim corner and fog-wreathed street. Tonight, each step felt heavier, the weight of unseen eyes and unspoken truths pressed from all sides. In a quiet cafe tucked between fading graffiti and flickering street lamps, Lena set the photo beside her half-empty cup of bitter coffee. The warm amber glow from the aged lamp bathed the table, contrasting with the cool blues of the storm outside. Her fingers hovered near the image. It beckoned, enigmatic and insistent. A barista polished a glass nearby. Lena's voice broke softly. "Have you seen this street?" She gestured toward the photo. "Where do people disappear when no one's looking?" The barista hesitated, eyes flickering away. "Some alleys are best forgotten," she murmured, more warning than answer. Lena turned back, face illuminated by the photo's spectral light. Shadows pooled beneath her eyes, but in that moment, a flicker of purpose stoked the embers of doubt. She ventured deeper into the city's veins, retracing the photograph's source. Narrow, winding passages swallowed her whole, their cobbled stones slick with rain. Neon signage buzzed above, juxtaposed against fading murals, faces and places half-erased by time's indifferent hand. A low rumble of distant thunder mirrored the turmoil within. She paused beneath a flickering street lamp, the camera lens pressed close to the mysterious photo, as if it could focus clarity from the blur of shadows. Suddenly, a clatter echoed in a nearby alley, a rusted bike falling against cold bricks. Lena's heart jumped, her breath caught in the icy air. Had she been followed, or was the city itself breathing secrets she was only beginning to hear? Uncertainty flashed across her eyes, then resolve settled like a cloak. "I'm not invisible," she whispered, voice fierce yet fragile. "I will be seen." The city pulsed beneath the rain, blind to her vow but humming with uncharted stories. Lena's journey had begun anew, a precarious path lined with shadows and truth's fragile glow. As she stepped forward, the camera pulled back to frame her silhouette receding down the mist-shrouded street, the distant hum of neon and rain the soundtrack of a story unfolding one shot, one frame, one borrowed memory at a time. The city breathed around Lena like a living entity, its cold urban pulse syncing with the hammering rhythm of her heart. She moved through the rain-slick streets with a clutching urgency, the cryptic photograph burning a hole in her pocket. Night thickened the shadows, twisting alleys and neon reflections into fragmented, haunting shapes as if the city itself conspired to hide truths too delicate to bear. Inside her cramped apartment, the air was thick with a blend of stale smoke and the faint scent of developing chemicals. Walls lined with discarded photos, past and present, bore silent witness to her restless nights and mounting obsession. Lena's fingers trembled as she laid the enigmatic photo on the cluttered table beside an old camera lens, poised delicately like a fragile truce between her fractured self and the uncharted path unfolding before her. Her mind spun a web of questions, each thread stretching taut with the weight of doubt and fear. A sense of urgency and danger coiled beneath the surface, drawing closer with every secret glimpsed, every step deeper into borrowed memories and unbidden experiences. The line between observer and participant blurred. A sharp knock shattered the fragile quiet. At the door stood Marco, his expression unreadable, a flicker of challenge in his eyes. "Still chasing ghosts, Lena?" His tone was both mocking and accusatory, a reminder of battles lost and the monsters lurking within. Her glance hardened but revealed the cracks of vulnerability slowly healing. "I'm uncovering truths you'd rather leave buried," she replied softly, the promise of confrontation simmering in her voice. Days became a blur of stolen moments and stolen images, flashbulb sparks amid the shadows. Lena ventured into dark corners of the city and psyche alike, gathering fragments of stories that weren't hers, yet somehow tied irrevocably to her own soul. Each encounter brought minor triumph, a deciphered clue, a glimpse of a hidden face, and each cost a piece of her certainty, her trust. Tension thickened the air like fog. Allies whispered doubts, their faces clouded by fears that haunted Lena herself. The city weighed heavily, its indifferent gaze blind to the cost of secrets uncovered and lives intertwined. Betrayal slid through the cracks uncertain, brutal, and Lena grappled with the moral shadows creeping tighter with every choice. One night, beneath a sky smeared with rain and light pollution, she sat alone in a cafe, hands wrapped around a lukewarm cup. Reflections shimmered in the rain's streaked window, urban ghosts mingling with dreams deferred. Her voice was a fragile murmur to the empty chair opposite. "Am I losing who I am, or finding who I'm meant to be?" The silence answered in echoes layered with doubt and hope. The cryptic photograph lay beside her, its surface catching the lamplight, a lingering question etched into its grain. Lena's decision to pursue the unknown had set her on a precipice, the edge of which was blurred by shadowed choices and the flicker of an uncertain future. As she stared at the photo, a faint movement flickered in the reflections behind a shadow, a presence. Her breath caught, awareness sharpening. The story she chased was no longer distant, it was enfolding her, demanding an answer. The camera drew back slowly, the noise of the city folding around her solitary figure. An untold journey paused on a shutter's edge, trembling in the gap between fear and revelation. The night smothered the city in a thick, oppressive silence as Lena sat alone in her apartment, the only light emanating from the erratic flicker of a failing lamp. The cryptic photographs she had been unraveling lay scattered across her desk, their glossy surfaces reflecting a fractured reality she was only beginning to comprehend. Each image, haunting and fragmented, seemed to pulse with a life of its own, drawing out memories that were not hers yet bleeded into the fabric of her being. Her breath came shallow, caught between anxiety and awe as she stared at one particular photo, a candid capture of a man she recognized faintly from fleeting urban shadows. The images whispered chaotic stories of betrayal, pain, and lives interwoven with Lena's own in ways she had yet to fathom. The weight of this revelation pressed down, suffocating yet electrifying, forcing her to confront the murky depths where identity blurred with illusion. Outside, the city lights carved spectral patterns through the windowpane, their cold hues contrasting sharply with the warm but fragile glow within her room. The fractured mirror, ever present and taunting, caught a sliver of her face, reflecting a woman on the precipice of transformation, torn between self-doubt and awakening strength. Her phone buzzed faintly, an ignored message from a friend, now a distant memory. Instead, Lena's fingers traced the worn edges of a discarded photograph, an emblem of forgotten dreams and lost possibilities. The symbol of abandonment contrasted starkly with the fierce determination rising within her chest. "Who owns these moments? Whose story am I telling?" she murmured, voice barely audible amidst the city's distant hum. A sudden knock shattered the silence, sharp and unexpected. Lena started, heart hammering, as Marco's shadow crossed the threshold, a specter from her fears and past humiliations. His eyes, cold and calculating, locked onto hers, carrying the weight of judgment and concealed threats. "Discovering truths that don't belong to you can be dangerous, Lena," he said, voice low but edged with menace. She met his gaze, a fragile but unwavering defiance igniting. "Maybe it's time some truths were seen," she responded, the words tasting both bitter and liberating. As Marco retreated, the room felt charged with silent intensity. Lena collapsed into her chair, the diary open before Hera, tether between old wounds and new revelations. Her hand lingered over a page with words that seemed to twist and ripple, blurring the lines between past and present, self and other. The photograph on her desk caught the light, the shadows within it deepening, hinting at secrets yet concealed. The camera lens nearby reflected her determined Isa promise forged from pain and discovery. Outside, rain began to fall softly, each droplet punctuating the quieted, delicate symphony for a soul poised at the edge of profound change. The scene closed on Lena's silhouette framed by the window, the city's urban shadows merging with the fragile light within, a visual emblem of her journey from fragmentation toward clarity as the story plunged into the abyss of Act 3. The city was suffused with an oppressive grayness, a heavy sky pressing down upon cold streets slick with unrelenting rain. Lena's apartment, a refuge now turned prison, was cloaked in darkness save for the pale illumination of her computer screen casting fractured light across walls cluttered with photographs. The image saw a haunting gallery of stolen moments and forgotten lives seemed to close in like silent specters, each pixel a flicker of a life she was living but did not own. Her gaze was hollow yet intense, reflecting the shards of her fractured sense of self. The sweat of sleepless nights clung to her brow as the weight of revelation crashed upon her. The intimate world she had been unraveling was not just another sit, was a parallel existence entwined with her own, suffocating and indistinguishable. Her breath hitched in the heavy silence. Outside, the endless swell of the city murmured beneath the roar of distant thunder, the sound swallowed by the gray void pressing against her windows. The faint, eerie glow of neon signs filtered through rain-streaked glass, painting her face in fragmented hues of cold blues and unyielding shadows. Memories and borrowed moments tangled within her like fading film. The camera lens, once a sacred instrument for truth, now felt like a tether chaining her to a destiny looted by unseen forces. Her tiny hands, trembling yet clutching a weathered photograph, betrayed the fiery spirit sinking into despair. Voices once full of promise now whispered accusation. Marco's cold judgment echoed through the hollow chambers of her mind, a relentless reminder of inadequacy and doubt. Friends had withdrawn, their warmth replaced by whispered doubts and silence. She was alone, engulfed by a loneliness that seeped at her bones. Her reflection fractured and multiplied across the cracked mirror segments resting against a wall, a ghostly, distorted mosaic of identity reduced to fragments. Images blended a woman she once was, another she despised becoming, and a third she feared losing entirely. The only sound was the relentless tick of an old urban clock, a metronome marking the disintegration of her world. She pressed her palms against her temples, the crushing weight of betrayal and confusion folding her inward. Her voice, when it came, was a fragile whisper lost amid the roar of city rain. Who am I if I'm not myself? The shadows gripped tighter as the light wavered, the walls seemed to close in, the urban landscape outside indifferent to a soul unraveling within. The final frame lingered on her silhouetted figure slumped beside a shattered camera lens on the floor, the cold light of dawn yet to break through the heavy night, a poignant visual of a woman falling through the cracks of her identity, caught between the unbearable and the undefinable. The night had long settled, folding the city into layers of shadow and muted noise. Lena sat alone in her cramped apartment, the thin walls hollow conduits for distant sirens and the faint murmur of late-night conversations drifting from unseen windows. The persistent drip of water from a leaky faucet marked time like a slow heartbeat, then, relentless. It was a sound she had come to know too well in these endless hours, a metronome for her unraveling. She wore the same worn coat that had become a second skin, its fabric heavy and damp from countless exposure to rain and despair. Her fingers trembled slightly as they hovered over a scattering of discarded and crumpled photographs strewn about the floor. Each image, faded and bent, told its own story of fractured reflection of someone else's life, and now, painfully entwined with her own. A single frame caught her Gaussian empty alley bathed in street lamp light, its shadows carved in deep indigos and gunmetal blues. It was the perfect silence, a space stripped bare of pretense and noise. She pressed her palm against the cool glass of the frame, the chill seeping into her skin, a sharp contrast to the hollow ache nesting in her chest. Outside, the wind whispered through the narrow alleys, carrying with it the scent of wet pavement and forgotten secrets. The city's pulse seemed to slow, the usual cacophony retreating into an oppressive stillness that festered in the corners of the room as surely as in the corners of her mind. Her breath came cold and ragged, forming small, fragile clouds that dissipated into the stale air. Lena's eyes, shadowed and glassy, reflected the dim glow of a flickering neon sign from a rundown bar below, a fractured kaleidoscope of light and despair. Words seemed to dissolve before she could grasp them, her voice barely a whisper. "Who am I, when the life I know is not my own?" No answer came except the echo of dripping water and the unyielding tick of the clock on the wall, its hands moving forward with merciless certainty. Her gaze shifted to the camera lens resting on a rickety shelf, dusty and unused. It once symbolized hope, the power to claim moments and make them hers. Now it felt like a gateway to a fractured existence she could neither escape nor fully inhabit. The cracked mirror leaned against the far wall, shards casting distorted images that fractured her reflection into shards of doubt, fear, and isolation. She staggered forward, hand trembling as she reached out to touch the broken glass. The jagged edges cut her fingertips, a visceral reminder of the pain held within fractured selves. A sudden gust rattled the windowpane, dust swirling like tiny specters around the room. Lena recoiled as if struck, her breath hitching in a moment of sharp vulnerability. She sank to the floor, knees drawn tight, the weight of invisible chains pressing her downward. The room closed in, silence deepened. The city waited beyond, indifferent and uncaring. And there, in the suffocating quiet, Lena faced the abyss alone, adrift, on the brink of surrender. The camera slowly pulled back, the flickering neon the last flicker of light in a room swallowed by shadow, a poignant emblem of a spirit on the edge of extinction, awaiting a spark to ignite the long journey back. The darkness in Lena's apartment was absolute, swallowing the fragile glow from her lone desk lamp hole. The night outside pressed against the windowpanes in ceaseless rain, a slow cascade that drowned the city's distant hum into mournful silence. She sat huddled on the cold floor, the diary open before her like a fragile altar, its pages stained with half-forgotten sorrows and secrets too heavy to carry. Her fingers traced one photograph, a blurred fragment of a past life not her own, yet inexplicably tied to her heartbeat. The camera lens, so often a refuge and a lens into the world's truth, lay shattered beside her, a poignant emblem of her fractured identity and fading clarity. Each shard caught the dim light, fracturing her reflection into ghostly shards of what she was and who she feared she was becoming. A trembling breath escaped her, mingling with the whispered ghosts of the urban shadows she'd chased, now coiled tightly within her soul. The city, in muted pulses of cold neon, seemed distant yet intimately intertwined, its unseen stories pressing relentlessly into her fragmented being. In her despair, a faint sound like the soft click of a camera shutter pierced the void. Lena's eyes, heavy and rimmed red, snapped toward the sound. There, on the desk beside the diary, glimmered a discarded photo she hadn't noticed before. The image was faint at first, half swallowed by the shadows, but as she adjusted the lamp, colors bloomed, rich and vivid against the cold palette of her surroundings. It was a photograph not of borrowed memories or stolen moments, but of something deeply personal, a youthful glance captured long ago, a frozen flicker of genuine hope amid the years of decline. Lena's lips parted in a silent gasp. The photograph was a bridge, a subtle, shimmering thread weaving together forgotten dreams with the promise of renewal. For a brief, flickering instant, the cracked mirror reflected not the fractured shards of her despair but a singular, whole image of herself, resolute, ready, and on the cusp of transformation. The spectral silhouette, that once loomed as a forbidding shadow, retreated into the periphery, its silent watch replaced by the gentle patter of new beginnings. Lena's voice was a whisper, fragile yet imbued with conviction. Maybe, just maybe, it's not over. Outside, the rain softened to a tender drizzle, the city's heartbeat resuming a tentative rhythm. The camera lens caught the soft glow of dawn approaching, a signal that while darkness had consumed her for a time, the first light of understanding now beckoned. The scene lingered on Lena's hesitant smile, the diary clasped close, as the urban shadows began to recede, a quiet testament to resilience and the sainted possibility of rebirth. Dawn threatened to break through the heavy clouds, spilling pale light over the city's jagged silhouette. Lena stood on the balcony of her small apartment, the cold morning air brushing against her face, her eyes fixed on the horizon. The city stretched endlessly, a maze of shadows and memories, yet for the first time, she felt something shift within her, a faint pulse of hope flickering amidst the remnants of despair. Her coat, once heavy with doubt, hung loosely around her shoulders. She reached into her bag, fingers trembling slightly as she retrieved the old camera-worn lens cap removed, revealing a lens that reflected the dawn's dim glow. In that fragile moment, she saw not just an object, but a tool of transformation, a promise of seeing beyond the shadows. The streets below, cloaked in a misty haze, murmured softly, almost like a whisper of forgiveness. The city's muted palette of steel, brick, and broken dreams slowly warmed as the sun's early rays seeped through the clouds, casting a golden hue on the rooftops. For Lena, it was a signal whisper that light could pierce even the darkest corners. Turning from the view, she carried the camera to her small workspace, a cluttered sanctuary of discarded photos, vintage trinkets, and sketches of unrealized dreams. The room was thick with silence, broken only by the faint, rhythmic ticking of an old clock, marking the slow passage of time she now felt ready to reclaim. Her fingers stilled over the camera's shutter button, her breath shallow but steady. The lens illuminated her face in a soft glow, revealing a mixture of hesitation and newfound resolve. She raised the camera, not with the desperation of seeking fame, but with the quiet determination to see what she had looked past for so long. In her mind, memories flickered, the rejection at the gallery, the discarded photos of yesterday's hopes, and yet, alongside them, a new thought began to bloom. Perhaps she had been seeking recognition in the wrong places. Perhaps her purpose wasn't to be validated by others, but to find truth and beauty in her own eyes. A faint smile touched her lips, fragile yet genuine. She took the first shot, capturing the light slipping through the window and illuminating the cluttered chaos of her life, a symbolic act of embracing imperfection, of accepting the shadows and the light both inside and out. As the camera's shutter clicked softly, the room was bathed in a warm, golden Hawaiian awakening. The shadows receded slowly, inviting her to step further into her own story, to transform her pain into something meaningful. The broken pieces of her identity shimmered in newfound clarity, yet she knew this was only the beginning, a fragile first step towards true renewal. The scene lingered on Lena's quiet, resolute gaze as she lowered the camera, the glow of dawn illuminating her face with a tender promise that even amid darkness, hope was not lost, and her journey toward authenticity had quietly, fearfully begun. The dawn's early light spilled warmly across the cityscape, dissolving the shadows that had clung to Lena's soul for so long. It crested the horizon like a promise, bathing her small studio in hues of amber and rose. Inside, the air was thick with quiet anticipation. Her hands trembled slightly as she held her camera, an instrument that had once only captured fragments of life, now poised to seize a moment of profound truth. Lena moved with deliberate purpose, her steps echoing softly across the worn wooden floor. Her face was calm but bright, eyes shining with a newfound resolve. With a steadying breath, she aimed her lens at the window, a simple scene of the city awakening, each detail infused with meaning and beauty she'd been blind to before. Closing her eyes briefly, Lena remembered her journey, how she'd been pushed into darkness by betrayal, how she'd fallen into despair, only to find a flicker of light amid the shadows. That light now grew into a blaze, urging her to act, to document not just what she saw but what she felt. She pressed the shutter. The click resonated like a heartbeat, steady and certain. The image on the film was more than a picture. It was her awakening the moment she reclaimed her voice. The room seemed to breathe with her, the muted colors of her past slowly giving way to vibrant hues of hope. "This is my story now," she whispered, voice filled with clarity and purpose. "No more shadows. No more silence." In that silence, a transformative energy filled her, an almost palpable surge that bridged the distance between despair and strength. The city's sunrise spilled softer light through the window, illuminating her face and the camera in a gentle glow, symbolizing the dawn of a new chapter. She lowered the camera slowly, her hands firm yet gentle, as if cradling the fragile promise of change. Her breath steadied, and her gaze fixed unwaveringly on the horizon. The light was spilling into her eyes, now reflecting a heart that had been broken but was mended anew, rediscovering purpose through the lens of her own truth. The scene lingered on her silhouette, the woman who had fallen so low yet now stood tall, bathed in the glow of possibility. Behind her, the shadows receded, leaving her free to embrace the unknown with open eyes and a resilient spirit. The cinematic pause whispered a silent vow. She was no longer a prisoner of her fears but a witness to her own rebirth, ready to face the story that awaited her. The first light of dawn spilled over the city, igniting the sky in a cascade of gold and crimson that poured into Lena's studio like a baptism. Standing at the window, she watched the streets awaken, their shadows retreating before the inevitable brilliance of the day. Her figure was calm yet resolute, a silhouette bathed in the powerful glow of her rebirth. In her hands, she held the camera, an extension of her renewed spirit, now fully awakened and aligned with purpose. The lens reflected her face, inhabited by the quiet strength of someone who had stared into darkness and chosen to rise. Around her, the room was infused with a subtle warmth, the cold blues of her past dissolving into the vibrant hues of clarity. She took a steadying breath, feeling the weight of her journey, the betrayals, the doubts, the truths uncovered, and released it slowly, like a prayer. Her eyes, sharp and unwavering, traced the familiar shape of the city, now transformed by her gaze into a symbol of resilience and justice. Every shadow cast became an invitation to see beyond the surface, to find beauty amid the ruin. Lena raised the camera, aligning it with her vision, a perspective shift like no other, a deliberate choice to see the world anew. She pressed the shutter, the click echoing like the beat of a victorious heart. The image she captured was more than a photo. It was a testament to her rebirth, a testament to the power of empathy, justice, and self-assertion. The muted colors in her studio morphed into a tapestry of vibrant illumination, a visual echo of her inner transformation. The shadows, the city's urban secrets, were now illuminated, not to hide but to reveal truth. Her expression softened into a gentle smile, a silent acknowledgement that darkness always gives way to dawn, that despair paves the path for understanding. The camera panned out slowly the room, now a sanctuary of strength and hope. Lena's posture was calm but purposeful, poised at the precipice of the final confrontation, her purpose clear and unwavering. The city outside stretched boundless and luminous, a living canvas awaiting her next story. In that moment of silence, suffused with the beauty of newfound clarity, time seemed to pause, an eternal reflection of her journey from shadows into light, an image etched into eternity, embodying her transformation and readiness to face whatever came next. The soft morning light seeped through the uncovered windows, a gentle glow that touched the edges of Lena's quiet room. She sat cross-legged on the wooden floor, the edges of her worn coat draped loosely around her. In her hands, she cradled the newly rewoven diary, its pages now no longer haunted by secrets but imbued with her own truth. The air was thick with the scent of fresh coffee and hope, a subtle aroma whispering of new beginnings. Her gaze lingered on the edges of her reflection in the cracked mirror, each fragment catching the light differently, shattered yet whole. Slowly, she lifted her eyes and examined her face, eyes softened from the years of doubt and hardship, yet shining with a quiet resilience. The journey had carved scars into her heart, but also carved strength into her spirit. With a deliberate, almost tender movement, Lena traced the worn leather cover of the diary, her story, her redemption. It was symbolic. The broken pieces of her past now fitting together, not perfectly, but beautifully. She ran her fingers along the pages, knowing that she had opened a door she could no longer close, a door leading inward, revealing her true self, beyond masks and shadows. In the silence, her fingers brushed against a photograph she had taken, the last piece of her metamorphosis. It was a simple image, a quiet street in the dawn's early light, a scene she had once dismissed as mundane. But now, the light, the shadows, the balance, everything resonated with a deep, almost sacred clarity. Her breath caught softly, a fragile acknowledgement that she had finally seen with new eyes. Her hands, no longer trembling but steady, reached for the camera, an extension of her evolving perception. She paused, her mind flooded with memories, pain, loss, resilience, and newfound purpose. With an unspoken resolve, she pressed the shutter. The lens captured the quiet beauty of awakening, an ending, and yet truly, a beginning. The camera pulled back slowly, framing her silhouette against the warming glow of the morning. The room, once filled with chaos and shadows, now radiated calm and acceptance. Outside, the world stirred gently, an unspoken testament to the quiet victories of resilience. The city's pulse was steady, its shadows retreating like old ghosts, replaced by the soft embrace of dawn. In that moment of stillness, Lena felt the profound truth settle within her, a serene clarity that transcended words. She exhaled slowly, the weight of unresolved fears dissolving into the gentle light. The scene faded into a horizon painted with promise, an eternal dance of shadow and light, balance restored, and her soul finally at peace. The golden hour cast a gentle glow over the town, enveloping Lena in a soft, almost sacred radiance. She stood silently by the edge of the cliff, the vast expanse of sky and sea spread out before her, a mirror of the journey she had traversed, now reaching its quiet, profound conclusion. Her camera hung loosely around her neck, the weight a gentle reminder of her newfound clarity. She looked down at the freshly captured photograph in her hands, a picture that she knew encapsulated her entire transformation, an image not just seen but felt, the culmination of her pain, her insights, her forgiveness. It was a moment she could never have envisioned, filled with both the serenity of acceptance and the anticipation of futures yet unformed. The wind whispered softly, ruffling her tousled auburn hair, a gentle caress tying her present to her past, the shadows she had once feared and fought so fiercely, now just part of a larger, harmonious whole. Her eyes lingered on the horizon, where the sky kissed the sea in a tender embrace, an ending and a beginning. Slowly, Lena lifted her camera to her face, her fingers curving around its familiar shape with a delicate reverence. As she adjusted the lens, her movement was unhurried, almost reverent, a silent prayer for peace, a vow to herself that she would continue to see the world with new eyes. The trigger pressed softly, an intimate click frozen in the frame of eternity. The scene widened, capturing not only her figure on the precipice but the expansive life she had reclaimed, a portrait of resilience painted with the subtle strokes of acceptance and profound self-love. The warm glow of the setting sun illuminated her face, casting a luminous halo, anchoring her as the custodian of her story, a silent testament to the courage to forgive and the grace of surrender. The camera pulled back, slowly fading into the wide, cinematic shot of Lena, standing still but transformed, her silhouette etched against the luminous horizon. The wind and the waves became a chorus of peace, a symphony that celebrated renewal. Her gaze, steady and peaceful, held the promise of future chapters written with unclouded clarity. A pause. An eternity. This was her moment of poetic justice, not granted by others, but earned through the silent, relentless battle within, an echo of her journey from shadows into light. The scene dissolved into a lingering shot of her figure, a symbol of hope, healing, and the unbreakable strength of an awakened heart. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a soft, golden glow that seeped into Lena's quiet sanctuary. She stood beside her window, the camera in her hands gently cradled as if holding the weight of everything she had endured, a journey of shadows and light, loss and awakening. The city beyond was bathed in a lingering dusk, quiet and vast, a silent witness to her transformation. The photograph she just captured was unlike any before. It was raw in its honesty, unfiltered by doubt or expectation, a mirror of her newfound clarity. The image was simple yet profound. A solitary tree standing resilient amidst a storm-swept field, its branches stretching toward an endless sky. It embodied her resilience, her acceptance, her peace. Lena's gaze softened as she examined the scene, her reflection shimmering faintly in the glass. Her tousled auburn hair caught the last rays of sunlight, framing her face like a halo of quiet strength. Her fingers lingered on the lens, tracing the contours of her hand in a gesture of reverence and release. A breath rose slowly from her chest, deep and steady, in acknowledgement that she was finally whole. The camera zoomed out, expanding to capture her silhouette against the sprawling vista tableau of serenity, a testament to her journey. Shadows and golden light intertwined, poetic and fleeting, sealing her transformation in a silent vow. The world around her softened, the chaos of her past dissolving into the gentle hush of evening. In that tranquil moment, Lena lifted her camera high, capturing the expansive sky and the solitary tree, a living symbol of her resilience, her forgiveness, her rebirth. The shutter clicked, a delicate, definitive sound that echoed like the closing of a chapter and the beginning of another. The scene froze on her peaceful face, timeless and unburdened, a silhouette bathed in dusk's gentle glow. The camera slowly pulled back into the vast silence, an image of serenity, of acceptance, of hope enduring darkness. The light waned, leaving only the soft glow of stars emerging in a night that promised peace and eternity. How do shared memories shape identity? Reflect below and subscribe for more evocative stories.